Metaphysician's Companion.
Good afternoon, John. Rebecca here again. I think this is number 12, if I'm right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You realise it's now 3 months we've been chatting away like this?
3 months, yeah.
Well, it's a long time, isn't it? Well, it seems like long. But when you listen to the episodes, it seems like real short. Anyway, it's really good to be here. I think today I'm going to let you kick off the conversation.
Yeah, well,
you had something in mind when we have a cup of coffee.
I did actually have something in mind. And it came from what was happening for me at the end of the last episode we did. And I was becoming aware of the concept of self at centre. You know, that the personality is just something that is developed to interact in this world that we live in. And that the real self, you know, the essence of life, the intention to be here, is where what spiritual component comes into play. And
wow. Okay, so what you're really saying is that there's this part of us which is, for what about, is the spirit, and on top of that builds the personality and the outward being. Is that
well? It's like I come into this world. Like if you think of yourself as a baby, and you come in, and you start to look at what's happening around you, what world you find yourself in. You see people doing things, and you start to fit in, to become part of what you see around. And this is what develops personality. Kind of like if you grew up in England, you'd speak English. If you grew up in France, you would speak French, because you've absorbed the language that's around you, and you absorb the cultural orientation and the way people walk even, you know, by observation. You know, it's one of the great things about it being human. We have this observational learning capacity.
So what is the undercore, for want of a better word?
Well, again, if you look in the way the yoga, which is my bias, I freely admit it, they talk about Atman, which loosely translates as spirit.
Okay.
You know, it underlies everything. And the individual spirit, Jivatman, is what underlies a living entity.
So that's a bit what I call the higher self.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this is what I call the higher self. So the higher self of that incarnation, I think we have to talk that way. It comes into the body, and it comes in with certain things, but basically it's a blank canvas that is developed around how you live and where you're living and the rest of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you come in and there's kind of like a karmic momentum.
Okay.
You know, like we spoke about karma previously. Yeah. And we enter this world and we start to adapt, fit in, and we develop this personality, you know, the way in which we interact with other individuals. Again, going back to the Yoga Sutras, there's a concept called asmita, which is misidentifying the transitory for the permanent, and that we stop being so aware of the self at centre, the higher self, and become engaged and caught up with being this personality, this entity in the physical world.
Which is basically what majority of us do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what is the advantage of going back to the, what do you call it, the Sanskrit word? The
Atman.
Atman, yeah. So what do you think the advantages of trying to take your consciousness back to that? Well, inner being, I think that's the right word.
The inner being.
Yeah.
Well, getting stuck here, yeah.
I like asking sticky questions.
Well, the concept is enlightenment. You realise that's when enlightenment is like, oh, look at that. I'm actually more than this physical self I present in this world. And then there's a concept of kaivalya, which is liberation, which is when the self, the true self, starts to free itself of karmic attachments.
Karmic and also learned attachments, I suppose that's the other word too.
Yeah.
So that's what I would call my higher self, and I have this thing, whatever I've written about, called the multidimensional higher self, which is the part that creates the higher self, which is then the part, but it then creates that particular incarnation. So it's all integrated. So from my perspective, I actually I believe, and I've experienced to some degree, and I only use the word some degree because I think it's very hard when you're in that physical consciousness.
So I missed what you said. You believe in...
Well, I actually believe is an experiential thing I've had. The higher self does exist, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to get at is beyond the higher self, there's a multidimensional consciousness, which is actually still part of us, yet it's not. It's part of the all.
Yep.
But what I found is that you can, through, for want of better words, disciplines, be in touch with that consciousness and it will then help you, for want of better word, run your life in a much more spiritual, that's the wrong word, but it helps you through life in a different,
more harmonious way.
Harmonious way, yeah. And it's sort of like you can start to bypass the learnt things in
From
life. I'm not doing a very good description of this, but I'm just trying to.
What you mean.
It's like you can step over the personality to find, and it's not to say the personality is invalid. It's because you're living in it. It's about bringing another part of you into the equation.
Well, the way I understand it is that the personality, like I said, we've observed we create habits, and not all of these habits work to our advantage. And if we, to take more like the Buddhist idea is to step back. You step back from your engagement in the world, then you step back into this authentic self. And when doing this, the process is to surrender control from the intellect, who I think I am, to what I am in reality, and to allow, to surrender control.
Yeah.
It's not about submission, which is a completely, it's about realizing that my expression here as a personality is the way in which my true self interacts with this world. And so I surrender to the intentions coming from it rather than from me thinking and making judgment calls.
Wouldn't that, I would look at it slightly different, that you would be saying to yourself, and you were saying yourself is probably the wrong word, but your consciousness is now saying, I now belong, I'm now aware, and therefore I belong to this higher being consciousness that I am. Therefore, if I belong, I can integrate myself and gain experiences through that rather than just the physicality of the world.
Yeah, belonging and integrating is surrender.
Okay, you put it, yeah.
It's becoming...
But it's good to have different words to things.
Absolutely.
Because when you're thinking about our audience, it's like, well, hold on, what's he meaning here? What's he meaning there?
The words don't matter as much as what they are pointing at. Words are containers for meaning.
Yeah.
And the fact that you put meaning into different words is, it's not important, to argue about which words we use. Yeah. But there's... how do you say again? To belong.
Yeah.
You're not fitting in and being submissive to some higher force.
You're part of it.
Yes, that's the thing.
Okay, and by that, you're part of that essence of you that's part of it, but you also, because you actually open up that channel, and use that word, a channel, it now enables you to open up your channel through that to your other, even higher consciousness.
Yeah, well, that's sort of getting out of...
Yeah, we're really going somewhere here. But I'm just to move slightly. As a psychic, sometimes what I used to see with people was to see beyond them. It's really hard to explain. For example, I'll be looking at a person and they would be talking and whatever, but I would see an essence of them that's, for want of a better word, it's behind them. It's not really behind them. It's like
it's in another dimension.
But it's the real them.
Yeah.
And that's the person I wanted to know, not the person that was pushing this whatever were out towards me. It was the real them.
Do you ever actually talk to that real them?
Yes, I've done that.
Yeah,
I had that. I did that with my deceased wife. We actually communicated through that about who we really were rather than who we weren't.
Then you are, the difference between who you really are and who you are in this world.
So our consciousness was attached in that sense, which in that case enabled me and her to experience other parts of our consciousness which weren't related to this lifetime.
Okay.
So it's like an in-depth thing. So you're not just talking to the person that's living now, you're talking to the consciousness that has been around for a long time, and vice versa. She was talking to my consciousness that had been around for a long time, in different forms and different places.
So when you say talking, it's not like using words, is it, or is it some other?
Most of it's visionary.
Yeah.
I think that's the right word. A lot of it was visionary. I mean, it was visionary of past. I use the word past existences. We talked about this, but it was visionary of living a life together in another place, another form, and the experiences that were relevant to us now rather than relevant than then. So the experiences that these two consciousnesses had together, which were positive and were relevant to our lives at that particular time. So it was a way of using that as a benefit. And then it's the other thing that really got me was you realize that there's no such thing as separation. Everything in this life is integrated in one form or other. We just deny it, or we're closed off to it.
Yeah.
It's only when you sort of get into this knowledge and wisdom, as I'm trying to talk about it, that you can realize that there's you as a being are far greater than that physicality that you are now, which is very limited. Because again, it's not being controlled, but it is developed through social integration, etc. So all the stuff we've talked about before. So it's developed through that. So, but there's far more. But again, when you pass over, you take the positive side of that with you.
Well, you take the whole.
We take the whole lot, but it's. I could change the subject and move into a whole different area here, but I won't, because it's. Because it's stuff I've been given knowledge of, which is I find really incredible. What happens to the personality and how it breaks up, but that's the whole other podcast, which whatever.
And see if we can keep it.
Yeah, well, again, we've got to try and keep it so people can understand where we're coming from.
Self at centre.
Yeah. So I think what we're trying to say is that, okay, listener, you are who you are now because you think you are that, but you can go beyond that if you wish and find an essence of your own self, which is highly, for what about spiritual? That's the wrong word, but it's a higher energy existence of who you are, the essence of your own creation.
Yeah, one of the things that I did a long time ago anyway was I was asking myself the question, what is the most real part of myself? And I start going, okay, like the physical body.
Yeah.
Well, people live and still exist when bits of it are cut off.
Yeah.
I cut my fingernails and throw the bits away and the hair and so forth. And so the physical body, like every atom in your body is different to what it was 7 years ago. Or about that, that's,
and every cell changes every few months.
The whole physical part of it has changed.
Yeah.
Yet something stays the same. and going, okay, and what about my thoughts? Like going back a step. Like I said, you go back each step, and I go, my thoughts. Well, I change my thoughts, and after practicing meditation for a while, I could find that I could sort of move my thoughts around. There's no such thing as having a obsessive thought. You just take a hold of it and go, no, I won't have you at the moment, and put it aside.
Yeah.
And so, having this ability to control what's going on in the intellect, going, right, who's doing that? It's like I sort of go, oh, wait a minute, it's not my intellect controlling my intellect. There's some me behind it. And that's sort of about as far as I got with that one. It was like a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, oh yeah, there's more than just personality, thoughts, and physicality. How do I move in that direction?
And the other side is, I think things like meditation allow you to experience that other part of you, because that quietness and that space you go into allows you to do that. And I think that's what's missed with a lot of this stuff. It's not explained to you not explained to you. It's not really meditation is used for relaxation and various other things and whatever. But the real essence of meditation, in my opinion, is to allow you to integrate yourself with your higher consciousness, or draw on it. It allows you that space of I'm not sure what I'm.
How about this?
Neutrality, space of neutrality.
Well, one of the way I think about it is that it quietens all the noise that's going on in my head, so I can hear the message coming from behind, or deeper, or wherever. And it's just that to be able to sit quietly and find my way to I don't know, it's like a quieter, even more real place within.
Yeah, and it's probably more than a quiet place. It's a place where, for want of a better word, it's a permanency. I think that's
I'd agree with that.
Permanency, like you're permanent. You're not transient. Transiental. Transient. That's a transient.
And in that place, I find that I call it good idea. A good idea. I have a good idea. There's two types of good ideas. One comes from the intellect, and this is one that just bubbles to the surface. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, that's the way it is.
Well, it's a bit like this podcast. Because this idea about this podcast came from exactly that.
From you, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what can I do? Basically, I want to do something to help people and move along and share my knowledge and whatever. And the word came up, podcast. And then I met you, and we tried I think we tried something else once, and then I said,
oh yeah, we did the workshoppy thing.
Yeah, and that didn't work out. But then I thought, and then this again was in the meditation. Ask John.
Oh, okay.
So it was like, I was in this quiet space, and it was like, that's the message.
Yeah.
Ask John. It was, but it didn't tell me what to ask John for, but the energy told me what I had to ask John for. Sorry, you get my drift? It's rather not, I wasn't ask John to do the podcast with you, it was just ask John.
Yeah.
But I knew instinctively what it was to ask John to do.
Yeah, it's when I get those kind of messages, it's sort of like in my head, I figuratively shrug my shoulders and go, okay,
yeah.
If you think it's a good idea.
Yeah, well, I get that sometimes. Like, I get the words, for example, and I get normally, it's funny, I usually get them at the beginning of a meditation. It's like, it's starting to get into it, and like this inner voice will say something like, you need to finish this first. This, for example.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it may not actually give me why I should finish, but I know instinctively what it's talking about.
Yeah, I get that. This is what I mean by a feeling.
Yeah.
It's not words, but the words are little.
Yeah.
But the intention that comes with it.
That's because you know that it's
Yeah. See, that's why I keep calling it intention.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. And I think that by finding that intention to life within myself that's my spiritual path.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's a that's gone pretty well. I wasn't really sure how this was going to pan out, this conversation, but I think it's gone all right. Anything else you want to talk about today, John? Or
I think
we covered
we've
it?
Done quite a bit about this, and then we go into repeating more and more examples. And
yeah, I'd really love to get people's ideas if they've experienced this stuff too, because that'd be wonderful to hear that sort of thing. Because I love it when people share stuff with us, and as you said, you can share it on Spotify at the bottom of the place you can do that, or you can email us. What's the email, John? I know I get it right.
Email is metphyscompanion@gmail.com. That's metphys is METPHYS companion, all one word, @gmail.com.
Yeah, or you can leave a note on the podcast itself, which is great.
Soon to appear on YouTube.
Oh, right. We go to YouTube. What else are we going to put? Are we on any other platforms now?
That's not on, maybe, but just the
YouTube. Were you talking about doing Amazon or?
That's Amazon Podcast.
It's on Amazon. Is it on there? On it? Is it on Amazon Podcast?
Yeah.
Okay, it's on Amazon Podcast as well. And we were looking at the Apple one, weren't we?
We were talking about it.
We're talking about it. Anyway, look, listeners, we're working on other platforms. So if you don't want to be on Spotify, at least there's some other way you might be able to listen to us. Anyway, I think that's about all for today.
Oh, I think so. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, and we hope you're all well and on a great journey in life.
Yep, and hope to have you with us for the next one.
Thank you for listening. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.